All right, welcome back in, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Tuesday. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Always love talking to our next guest. Does an excellent job really covering all the sports in the city. He was down at the NovaCare Complex today as the Eagles are practicing and meeting with the media as well in anticipation for this divisional round game against the Giants. You can follow him on Twitter at BY David Murphy, and of course, Inquirer.com columnist David Murphy. What's up, Dave? How you doing, man?
What's up, fellas? What's going on?
Hey, Dave, give me your vibe today for everything that kind of went down. I know Jalen Hurts had a great. He's got so many of these. I don't know, man. He's a machine. He's a quote machine or a I don't know what, but basically, hey, you're going to be full bore. You're going to be able to run the ball against the Giants. I got a bounty on me every game I go out there and play. The guy's like John Wayne, man, or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got the swagger. Plays the part. I'll give him that. He's I mean, he was exactly what you have come to expect out of Jalen Hurts. And he's right. I mean, he does have a bounty on him every game. Probably not explicit, but everyone knows that, you got to put some licks on him to kind of stay in the game against this Eagles offense. And I'll tell you what, Daniel Jones might be getting to that point right now with the way he was running the ball the other day.
Yeah, good point.
Look, from that respect, it's going to be the same mentality for both these teams. If you have a chance to hit this guy in the open field, you got to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, does that stop you from calling the plays that make Jalen Hurts as special as he is? Would you, as an offensive coordinator, try to save him a little bit for the next game? To me, I'm like, no, I'm it's all everything but the kitchen sink is going at this Giants team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can save anything. You can't look ahead. I think the big question, yeah, it is a big question, but I don't think we're going to know. I mean, I think the question is, is he healthy enough to execute those design runs? And I mean, we did not see it against the Giants last time. You could argue they didn't need to show it against the Giants last time, and it made the most sense just to get him on the field and protect him at all costs. But somebody asked him that today. I forget who it was, but they asked, essentially the question for all intents and purposes was, 2 weeks ago, we saw you kind of make a business decision on a number of different occasions. Is it all out this time? Are you going to be lowering the shoulder this time? And he kind of just gave a one-word answer that was non-committal. So I don't know. I think it's a big question where his physical state is at. I think anybody who's watched him as a competitor would expect, to see nothing less than 100%, regardless of where that shoulder is at. And yeah, I mean, Barrett, I'm with you. I think they have to make those calls. I
Absolutely.
think that design running game, as a part of this thing, because that's what that's 30-40% of their offense.
Hey, Dave, I love the article you wrote about previewing this matchup, about proceed with caution. 3 things to really take a look at. And I think we agree when you look at this team on paper, you look at the numbers they put up on both sides of the football, the Eagles are a superior team. Mm-hmm. But enlighten those who are watching and listening some of the concerns that you had moving forward as we get closer to this matchup.
Well, I mean, health's obviously the one big thing. We'll see what Lane Johnson looks like. I don't think that will be an issue, just given the way kind of he's practiced and also the way that he's played, through stuff in the past. But that's one big thing that could go wrong. And then Hurts obviously is another big thing. If for some reason he really isn't, if he is only 75% of himself, maybe that's enough to let the Giants back in this thing. But look, I was talking to someone in the locker room just an hour ago, and he put it best. I think I would be much more surprised if the Eagles lost this game than if they won by 2 touchdowns. So I mean, that's okay. That's kind of where my head is at. But we'll see. I think Daboll. I think Brian Daboll's a great coach, and I think that's probably one variable that you have to account for. The Giants kind of take the air out of the football. They're not the most pleasant team to watch on the offensive side of the football. But, if you limit possessions and then all of a sudden, one turnover, that can be the difference. So, look, we still got to see Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni win a playoff game. I think this is an opponent that they've showed they can handle, with relative ease in the past. But, we should take nothing away from them, if they do in fact win this game, because I think simply going out there and executing to a point where you score more points than the other team right now, it's a big step forward for this team.
Yeah, and that's the thing, David. You mentioned the talent gap, and I think it is pretty significant, but they are well coached, the Giants. You do wonder at some point if the lack of weaponry other than Saquon, and Daniel Jones certainly can hurt you in a number of different ways. We've seen that. But that doesn't catch up to them at some point. It didn't last week against the Vikings, but man, you do wonder if the Eagles can come out and establish themselves early. Can the Giants get back in a game if they're not leading or it's super close?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. That Vikings defense is just I don't know how they grade out as well as they do. But that's one of the worst defenses in the league that I've seen this year. And I think we saw it firsthand back in week 2. They're just not very good. And look, I think the Giants have a running game that the Eagles historically have not struggled to stop. It's kind of that power, downhill game. I'm not sure Saquon has that cutback explosion that he used to have. I'll tell you what, the one big variable is Daniel Jones carried the ball 17 times last game. And we've seen it with Hurts. We've seen it with Vic. We've seen it with, just about any scrambling quarterback out there. I mean, Justin Fields, he's not very good, but they won some games just because he can, it's real frustrating. And Jones is kind of might be the most frustrating of them because, he doesn't necessarily have that step, he doesn't have that quick athletic burst. But, when a guy like that then, scrambles for 10 yards on a 3rd and 8, it's just a complete backbreaker. You do everything right. And look, I think I am not scared by what the Giants did against the Vikings last week. I think the Vikings.
No, absolutely.
I think the Vikings are a uniquely bad defense. And, the only way I see them losing this game is just a complete meltdown.
Well, looking at, coaching staff, we asked Matt Lombardo about the same thing. Coaching staff, you got 2 coaches who probably should win, coach of the year with, how they brought these teams, 14-3. And then you have a team that made it to playoffs was so bad. I mean, the worst team I saw last year was the Giants. And now look at them now. What would you say is the best coaching staff out of the 2? Sirianni, Dable?
I'm a huge Dable fan, but I just think Sirianni, I haven't watched him every day. Right now, I don't know how many better coaches in the league there are. Obviously you got Andy Reid and, I'm not going to throw him in that category yet, but I'll tell you what the similarities between these 2 coaches is. They both coach to their talent, I think. And I'm interested to see what the Giants roll out here against the Eagles because, Dable has shown an ability to kind of adapt, and I think both have reached a point where they're really calling offenses that are specifically designed to maximize what their quarterback does. Look, the difference between these 2 teams, it might not be the coaching staff, it's the offensive line, and that's the biggest difference between. That's why Sirianni can do what he does. Having this offensive line allows you to do so many things as a head coach. Now you still got to be a good head coach, but that Giants line is still it's not nearly on the level of this Eagles offensive line. And the fact that they can run the way that they do, the fact that the Eagles can gash you the way they do. I mean, they 2 years now, they've been calling an offense that's 50-60% runs and 200 passing yards is the norm for this team.
Right.
That's a huge difference. Like when you're getting 4 yards before contact, it's just such a big thing. And I think Sirianni, coaches that up very well. I'm not taking anything away from him. Same thing we see out of Shanahan over in San Francisco, but they have the talent and the Giants don't. And that's really where I think, the big differentiator in this game is.
Hey, Murph, let me ask you, you got CJ Gardner-Johnson back for that final Giants game, whatever it was, but they got him back and we know what an impact he has. Now he could very likely be playing the slot here. It could be a different situation than how, where he was playing that safety spot, but how big is it just to get him back? Because we saw the secondary, I would say Slay more than anybody else, take a little bit of a hit in his absence.
Yeah. Look, we've seen that for years, how important that safety position is. You take it away, it matters. Maybe it doesn't matter, enough for teams to invest in it the way they do a cornerback position. But we saw that last year. It was just there's a whole reason why they traded for him, and moved them there. I think it can't do anything but help. I think it's huge. It's huge to come back. Avonte Maddox, we'll see. I don't know. Sirianni, I don't think sounded too optimistic about him.
No.
Yeah, what did he say about him, Murph, for people who don't know?
He essentially said what all coaches say. We'll see how he does and
progressing and all that.
I don't know. He kind of prefaced it with maybe he's completely blowing smoke, but he kind of put a little damper on it, I think.
Okay.
Who knows? Anybody this defense can get back is obviously going to help. Gardner Johnson, I think, he's a bigger variable probably against a team that's a little more vertical. I don't know that I would. Yeah, he's huge. It's huge to get him back, but I think right now, if the Eagles can stop the run, which I think they can, the Giants are not a team that can adapt real well. When they have 3rd and 8, throughout a game.
Hey, David, topic we discussed several weeks on this show. Now, we all sit here today on a Tuesday believing Lane Johnson is playing in this game. There's nothing that tells us that he's not going to play in this game. He may not be 100%. But if he re-aggravates that thing to a point where he can't go anymore, do you think we've seen enough of Jack Driscoll on that right side? Would you be all on board if they decide to move Mailata to the right side and insert Dillard? We haven't seen it. We've been screaming for it. We haven't seen it. But I think in a game of this magnitude, I think it would be a natural progression instead of crossing your fingers, putting Dillard back, putting Driscoll back on that right side.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you have to think about it given what we've seen, out of the other scenario so far. At this point, it's just such a massive difference. No matter who's in there, it's such a massive difference when Lane Johnson is not in there. It's almost like, don't even think about it,
It never happened. Just stick your head in the sand.
Like I'm with you, D. Like I'm totally on board with that. I just sometimes there's not an actual solution, and I think this might be one of those cases because Lane is just, you see his number. It's every year, it's those ridiculous misses, and you just see the disparity in the Eagles' numbers with him and without him. He's just so. I'll tell you what, that injury he has. I'm not a big fan of comparing the layman like myself to an offensive line, but like I've torn a groin before or an adductor muscle before, and it's like I'll be very impressed to see him go out there. I think he will, and it's a difference between me and him. I couldn't play basketball for a year. He's gonna block down linemen for 60 minutes on Saturday.
Dave, we get a little bit of that love juice though, man. That love juice, man. It gets you going, man. You don't feel anything for the first. You wake up that next day, you feel everything. You
guys got better pharmacists than us,
right?
But yeah, it's look, dude, like it's that the muscle that he has injured is the one that is essentially like your basketball slide muscle, and it's the one. Obviously, it's what makes him so good. His ability to balance on while doing that.
It's that kick leg.
Yeah. But at the same time, I don't think he would be cutting WWE promotions if he was worried. So
right.
How about Miles Sanders, Murph? What are your expectations? Because he gouged them in that first game, against the Giants. He had a big game. It's been limited of late. How much of that was maybe his knee wasn't 100%? How much of that is maybe they got away from it a little bit too much as play callers, et cetera? You expect a big one out of him this week?
Yeah, I do. And you know what? I like what I've seen out of Boston Scott. Although we've been saying that for 4 years now, and it's like they only rediscover it every year.
And especially against the Giants, he's good.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. He hits. Look, I think we're going to see. I don't have any obvious insight into the meeting room and what they're talking about, but I would be surprised if we don't see just a vintage downhill. You know, if they don't run the ball 30 times, you know, I'll be surprised. You know, shoot, they might end up running it 40 times. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Sanders is going to be a huge part of that. You know, I think Miles has kind of been Miles throughout his whole career. You know, and it's just about whether he's healthy or whether they're calling his number. And I understand why they changed it up. I mean, Boston Scott, some of these guys, you know, going back all the way to you know, Clement. I mean, they bring a little different skill set to the table than Miles does. And yeah, I think we're gonna see a ground and pound. You know, I think it's just gonna be, it's what the Eagles do well. You know, line up and just blow people off the ball, and then let Miles do his thing, and then throw, you know, Boston Scott in there for a couple other change of pace bullets.
I think the same thing, man. You know, because you're gonna have to ground and pound them. But the only thing is, from an offensive side, if you look at their offense and how you've seen Jones just go out there and really make the plays, he's making lemonade with lemons. You know.
Oh yeah.
I was trying to equate. You know, what's his name? Hodgins.
Isaiah Hodgins. Yeah.
Hodgins. Yeah. I was equating him to the Travis Fulgham type of guy. You know what I'm saying? Will he be that type of guy? He had one great game, and now everybody's thinking he's the second coming. I just like our defensive backs against any of their any of their wide receivers all day long, man. So when I can't look at Minnesota game and try to really put in perspective how we're going to play that defense, how we're going to play that offense with our defense. I just can't do it, man. I can't.
Yeah, man. Their offense does not scare me.
Right, not at all, not in the least.
I mean, look, like the two Vikings games are like two of the only games of the Giants offense hasn't looked like trash all year. You know,
right?
It's, you know, they look really bad at times. You know, the Lions, I think they put up a crooked number against. But this Eagles defense is just night and day from that Vikings defense. And I mean, Isaiah Hodgins, like, you know, we've seen Slay and Bradbury kind of take care of business against, you know, far more. Look, I like Darius Slayton. I think he's a good route runner. You know, but the biggest thing is the pressure. I think, you know, you know, Jones just looks like a completely different. He doesn't move. You know, as good of a scrambler as he is, he's not a great. He doesn't make real quick decisions. He doesn't really get away real quick. He doesn't have that first step, and I think that's what we saw when they played. You know, when they played in the past. You know, I think the Eagles' defensive line has the edge against this Giants' offensive line. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see them do a little more design run with Daniel Jones to kind of counteract that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think I don't think you're going to see nearly the Giants passing game that you saw. You know,
definitely not
on Saturday.
Definitely not
Sunday.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave.
From a pressure standpoint, but go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Dave, take Hassan Reddick out of the equation because he's had a phenomenal year.
Oh yeah, he was a monster last week or 2 weeks ago.
Who would be your defensive MVP on this Eagles team outside of Reddick?
That's a great question. I mean, you have to go with Darius Slay, I think, just because, you know, of what he does by just being able to man up on a guy. But you know, really all kind of works. It all kind of works. I don't know. What would you say? I mean, I would say Slay just because
I had said Bradbury. I mean, there's like so many different directions you could go with this. But
one of those two. I think like those two should be co-MVP. Like having two cornerbacks like that is just such a big thing, you know?
Yeah.
We lose light on how good TJ Edwards is.
Oh, he was the other guy I was going to say.
So many, you know. And like Rob said, how do you overlook Hargrave? You know what he's done.
Yeah, and you've already taken Hassan Reddick out of the question, so you know we've named pretty much the entire team. You know,
it's a good sign. Yeah, there's a lot of guys you can choose.
But yeah, Edward. I mean, look, I just talked to him today. You know, I think, you know, he's. I mean, I don't want to say he's been underrated, but just the strides that put it this way, the strides that position has made over the last couple of years has been
no question.
That's one of the big differences between these two units last year. It's just that linebacker position.
Yeah, no, well said. Merk, what were your thoughts on last night? Was that just a Tampa team that had no business being there, or did Dallas, you know, show you this is what they're capable of if they're dialed in?
Well, I mean, I'm going to go to my grave doubting Mike McCarthy. So
Okay.
I'm going to lean towards the last. Look, that Bucs team, they've been awful all year. They had no business being in the playoffs. Tom Brady has one foot out the door. He might want to just leave the building. The offensive line is just, he's such a different quarterback when he has time and he doesn't have guys at his feet versus when he does. The guy just can't move anymore. He's 45 years old. He still throw the ball. He just can't move. And yeah, I think this was. Look, the Cowboys have impressed me. They impressed me the way they put up those numbers against the Eagles defense. When Minshew was playing. So I'm probably a little wrong in blaming completely the Bucs, but I think, that Tampa team is they're just not. They're not the Cowboys were a 2.5-point favorite on the road, against Tom Brady. That kind of tells you something about, the disparity between those two teams. But you know what? At this rate, though, the Cowboys really might make me eat it because, I was not scared of them at all going into these playoffs, and maybe they really are who they are.
We'll find out this week. They're going against the hottest team in football.
Yeah, Michael Parsons. I think I doubt them more. I just think Trayvon Diggs is so overrated that defense must be overrated. But tell you what, man, Michael Parsons, he makes up for a lot of, he's one of those guys
he's everywhere,
always in the center of the frame, and he just single-handedly blows things up. Is he healthy, by the way?
He hurt his shin, he got kind of clipped, like friendly fire sort of deal.
Mm-hmm.
They said it was a shin. I thought it was more of his thigh. He played in the second half, but it was the game was such a disaster at that point. I didn't really notice him as much.
I went to bed shortly after halftime.
You didn't miss anything. You missed 2 more kicks. Yeah, you missed PATs. That's about it.
For
whatever reason, I've watched a lot of Bucs games this year. I'm not sure why. Maybe I've had money on them.
Maybe.
Actually, probably against them.
In theory, you had money on them.
Yeah. And they're every bit as bad as they looked. Against the Cowboys. They just look that way. That offense has looked that way every week. I thought they were a threat to the Eagles just because of last year and because of Todd Bowles and because of that defense. But I'll tell you what, Dak's playing a lot better than I've given him credit for in the past, I think. Don't get me wrong, I like him as a quarterback. I just never really considered him one of those guys that should scare you or would make a difference in a playoff game. But he definitely he made some throws last night that made you think twice about that.
Let me hit you with this, Mark, before we get you out of here, and we appreciate your time. You also cover the Sixers, cover everything for that matter.
I've actually written 95% Phillies since.
Yeah, it's true too. It's true too. You do it all, man. But let me hit you with Sixers here, just as they're in season. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. They're starting to, it looked like, find some kind of groove. A little bit of it is tough to judge because they're not playing anybody. But my counter was there aren't a lot of good teams in the league to be playing. What do you make of from what you've seen of them? How legit, how different they are, maybe, than what they were the last couple of years where they get bounced in the second round?
Man, I'll be honest with you. I can't even talk myself into the Sixers yet. Yeah. It's just they're just the same team as they've always been, right. And it's like part of it is the NBA doesn't really matter till after Christmas, but it's after Christmas here, and I still can't get excited about it. Maybe it's the Eagles, maybe it's the Phillies, whatever. But look, they're kind of to me, they're trapped in that. To your point, they're better than what? 24 teams in the league. Right. They're one of the 8 to 10 best teams. But it just it just takes so much to get to that, to get to that next stage. And I don't know if they have it. We'll see. I think Harden is. I think you can win with this team that they have. And I'll be honest with you. At some point, if Joel Embiid wants to be considered the player that he wants to be considered, then they need to win because of him. The Bucks win because of Giannis. Celtics. Celtics are kind of a unique team. I wouldn't really say wouldn't put Tatum on that level necessarily. But like yeah, like the Bucks win because of Giannis, and you're supposed to be, Embiid is supposed to be, that transcendental of a player. At some point, if you've got all these other pieces around you and you're still not winning, at some point you got to stop blaming the other pieces. So I think they're better. I think they're more sensible. I love the Anthony Melton. I think it really comes down to Doc to make it work. And then it comes down to Embiid to be the dominant guy that he needs to be, Yep.
Dave, let me ask.
We're not going to know anything until the playoffs,
Yeah. Well, Dave, let me ask you this then, because you said you've honed in on so much on the Phillies. Your thoughts on all the offseason moves they've made? Trey Turner is a huge one, but how they've shored up their pitching staff up to this point.
Yeah, I think they've done it. I think they've done all that they can do. I mean, you guys all know a bullpen. These relievers, it's really tough to know what you're going to get year to year.
Like kickers, they're like kickers, man.
You
never know.
But I mean, think about it. Like to a certain extent, they've done exactly what they've done the last few off seasons when they brought in guys like Brad Hand and Corey Knebel and Archie Bradley and Matt Moore and Yuris Familia. And it's like, all you can do is spend the money on guys that had good years last year and see what happens this year, So in that sense, I'm not it's kind of, you have to wait and see what you get. But I do think that they've done a really good job. I think they saw last year that the bullpen, the depth was a huge problem. And I think that they're, going to err on the side of having too much depth and too little this year. I like a lot of these like smaller moves that Dombrowski has made just to bring in arms. The guy, I love the move they made with the Tigers.
Soto.
Yeah. That guy, all you need is, you need Alvarado and Dominguez to be healthy and be who they were last year. And then all you need is, really one or two of those guys to hit for you and they'll be all right. So I like it. I like what they've done. I think, so much of it is going to come down to what we saw out of the big guys last year. Like our Nolan, Wheeler, what they were last year. Look, Wheeler, there's some reason to wonder like what his physical state was at, in the World Series. Nolan, I think, will be the same guy he's always been. So I think it comes down to, those guys are going to determine their upside. But I think they've look, if everyone's healthy, I think that 93 wins is their floor, But I also think that health is such a big part of it.
No question. Murph, listen, man, thank you. Keep up the good work. You can follow him on Twitter @ByDavidMurphy. And, of course, Philadelphia Inquirer, inquirer.com. Murph, we appreciate a couple of minutes. Man.
Appreciate you, bro.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you, bro.
All right,
man.
Take care.
Be good.
That is David Murphy. All right, let's get a quickie in here, guys, and we'll come back. And we will roll into our final segment, do some birthdays, do some movies, and get it back to some of the things that went down today with the Eagles and their meeting with the media as well. Don't go anywhere. Derek Gunn, Barrett Brooks, Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network.